أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 135, Surah An-Nahl, ayah number 22 to 40. إلهكم إله واحد. Your God is one God. فالذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة. But those people who do not believe in the hereafter, قلوبهم منكرة. Their hearts are disapproving. وهم مستكبرون. And they are also arrogant. This is a main lesson that we learn from the previous ayat. In the previous ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the various types of creatures that He has created and He has spread throughout the earth, and emphasis has been laid that all of this has been created for the benefit of who? For the benefit of human beings. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that ilahukum ilahu wahid. The one who has created all of this, the one who has brought you benefit from all of this creation, He is who? Only one God. Only one being. And since He is the only one who is doing all of this, therefore He is the only one who deserves worship. Ilahukum, your God. And remember, the word ilah is different from Rabb. Rabb is Lord, Master, Creator, Provider. But Ilah is who? One who is worshipped. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb, and He is also the Ilah. The mushrikeen, what did they think? That Allah is Rabb, however there can be many Ilah. You can worship whatever you want. You can worship any being. This is what their belief was. This is why they used to worship many things, for example, trees as well as idols that they had made with their own hands. But the reality is that if your Rabb is only one, your Creator is only one, then definitely the one who deserves your worship is also that same being, not anyone else. Ilahukum ilahu wahid. So He is the only one who deserves to be worshipped because He is one, He is unique, and there is no one who is similar to Him, no one who is equivalent to Him. And who is He? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَالَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ. But those people who do not believe in the hereafter, then what happens to them? When they are informed that your Lord is only one Lord, and He is the only one who deserves worship, what is their reaction? Their reaction is that قُلُوبُهُمْ, their hearts are munkirah. They are in denial. They do not acknowledge. What do they not acknowledge? They refuse to acknowledge the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because they do not believe in the hereafter. And moreover, وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ, and they're also arrogant. They refuse to accept the oneness of Allah. They refuse to give up their gods. They're extremely arrogant. We learn in Surah Safat, ayah number 35, that إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا إِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. That indeed these people, when it is said to them that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, they become very arrogant. They become very angry. And they refuse to accept the oneness of Allah. You see over here, the main reason behind their denial and behind their istikbar is what? The fact that they do not believe in the hereafter. When a person believes in the hereafter, when a person has this concept of being accountable for what he has done, then it makes him more serious. It makes a person more serious about the actions that he does, about the choices that he makes. And it makes him capable of accepting the truth. It is a part of human psychology, isn't it? That when you know you will be questioned, when you know you will be examined, then what happens? You automatically become more serious. And even if something goes against your desires, you do it anyway. Even if you don't like it, you'll do it anyway. Why? Because you are worried that you will be questioned. Like for example, it's possible that these days in groups when we're questioned every day, did you do your lesson 7 times? Just out of the fear of that question, what happens? We do the lesson 7 times. So, being questioned about something makes a person serious. And even if something goes against his desires, he will do it anyway. But if a person does not believe in the hereafter, he does not believe in any kind of accountability after death, then what is he going to do? he's going to follow his desires. He's not going to care about what the truth is, what makes sense and what does not make sense. He's just going to do whatever he feels like doing. So the mushrikeen as well, they did not believe in the hereafter. That was one of their main problems. And because of that, when they were told that Allah is one, He is the only one who deserves worship, what would they do? They would reject it. They would refuse to accept it. And وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ, they were also very arrogant. Meaning they would refuse to accept the truth and they would refuse to follow the Prophet ﷺ. Because what is istikbar? What is arrogance? بَطَرُ الْحَقِّ وَغَمْطُ النَّاسِ. It is to deny the truth, to refuse to accept it, and it is to belittle people. So a person who does not believe in the hereafter, he incurs two main losses. And what are they? First of all, قُلُوبُهُمْ مُنْكِرَةٌ, and secondly, وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ. Such people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَا جَرَمَ, assuredly. لَا جَرَمَ is an expression which gives the meaning of no doubt, certainly, of course. لَا جَرَمَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ, that indeed Allah, He knows. What does He know? مَا يُسِرُّونَ, whatever they hide, وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ, and whatever they reveal. Whatever they hide in their hearts, and whatever they reveal by their words and by their actions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all about that. إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْتَكْبِرِينَ, and He, meaning Allah, does not love who? Al-mustakbirin, those people who are arrogant. Meaning He will not reward them. And obviously, when He does not like them, when He does not love them, then they're going to be deprived of His blessings. Now you see over here what is mentioned. Allah knows what is in the heart, what you hide, and He knows what you reveal. And in the previous ayah, what is mentioned? Arrogance. And in this ayah again, what is mentioned? Arrogance. Now sometimes, a person's heart is filled with pride. A person's heart is filled with arrogance. But outwardly, he may appear to be very humble. He may appear to be very friendly. Isn't it? In his heart, he is rejecting the other person. He is perhaps answering back, yelling at them in his heart. But on the outward, he is showing a lot of good behavior, a lot of politeness. So what do we learn over here? That whether a person conceals arrogance in his heart, or he acts according to it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows fully about every single person. What's on the inside, and what is it that a person is showing to people. Now it doesn't mean that if a person feels something bad in his heart, he must show it. In such situations, what should he do? He should try to cure his heart, and he should seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help for it. But a person should remember that if it's in the heart, it will also come out. It will also come out. And this also shows to us that arrogance is actually a disease of the heart. Because مَا يُسِرُّونَ وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ, arrogance is a disease of the heart. And it is manifested in person's actions and in also his behavior. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is in the heart and what is also on the outward, then His judgment, His recompense is going to be the most just. Because He knows inside out. When people judge, when people give their verdict, when people give their opinion concerning someone, what is that based on? Just on the outward. Isn't it? Because we don't know what's in the hearts. But because Allah knows what's in the heart and what's on the outside, His knowledge is complete, therefore His decision is also the most just. It is also the most correct one. So ultimately, who should we fear? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because many times when we have such feelings in the heart, we become very careful in front of people. But the fact is that Allah knows us very well. In the hadith, what do we learn? That verily Allah does not look at your faces and your wealth, but what does He look at? At your heart and your deeds. So if a person conceals arrogance in his heart, or any such bad feelings in his heart, then he should be fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah does not like the arrogant. إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْتَكْبِرِينَ. He does not like the arrogant people. Especially if arrogance prevents a person from accepting the truth. It prevents a person from bowing down before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because many times a person, when he is arrogant, he refuses to accept, he refuses to acknowledge the greatness of people, and he also refuses to bow down before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He refuses to pray. He refuses to read the Quran. He refuses to follow the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. And we learn in Surah Ghafir, ayah number 60, that إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِي سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمَ دَاخِرِينَ. Verily, those people who scorn my worship, those people who were too arrogant to worship me, too arrogant to bow down before me, to pray to me, to make dua to me, then they will surely enter hellfire in humiliation. Why? Because Allah does not like the arrogant ones. If you think about it, in the previous ayat, what have we learned? About the various things that Allah has created for who? Human beings. And what's the origin of a human being? We learned in the previous ayat that min nutfa فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. He becomes very arrogant. So if you notice, throughout this surah, what is being mentioned? You are nothing without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything you have because Allah has given you. And your position is of someone who is very, very small, someone who is very insignificant. And when that is your reality, then arrogance does not befit you. Standing up against the commands of Allah, objecting what He has said, does not befit you. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ, and when it is said to them, مَاذَا أَنزَلَ رَبُّكُمْ, what has your Lord sent down? When it is said to who? When it is said to the mustakbirin, the arrogant people, the mushrikeen of Mecca, who refuse to acknowledge the oneness of Allah, who refuse to accept the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when it is said to them that مَاذَا أَنزَلَ رَبُّكُمْ, what is it that your Lord has sent down? قالوا, they say, what is their response? They say, أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ, it is the stories of the previous people. Asatir is a plural of ustura, and ustura, as you know, is used for a story that has been fabricated by the people of the past. Stories that have been fabricated. It is well known that there is no reality to those stories. Like, for example, fairy tales. They have been narrated generation after generation. They've been written. People have made movies out of them. So many things have been made out of them. However, it is well known that all of these stories are what? They're false. There is no reality to them. So they say that the Quran is what? It has a lot of stories, and these stories are all false, and they've actually been made up by the people of the past. And this man, meaning Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are these slaves, these Roman slaves, these Persian slaves who come and tell him about all these stories. And because we are not aware of them, we think that this is based on some kind of revelation. So when people would ask the mushrikeen of Mecca, what do you say about the Quran? What do you say about this message that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is conveying? Their response would be, it is nothing new. It is nothing great. Nothing special. It's just stories. That's it. There is a reason behind the revelation of these verses. It is said that when the Prophet ﷺ, he publicly proclaimed the message. In the previous surah, what did we learn? Fasda'. Publicly proclaim it. Up until that point, the Prophet ﷺ was doing da'wah privately, secretly. But after some point, he was commanded to do open da'wah. Which meant that anybody who would be coming to Makkah, anybody who would come across, he would give them da'wah. So when the Prophet ﷺ was publicly proclaiming the message reached various parts of Arabia. Up until now, it was known only to who? To the people of Makkah. But remember, Makkah was a place heavily visited by who? People all over Arabia. They would come to perform Umrah, they would come to perform Hajj, and they would come for various reasons. And remember that Makkah was not just a place where people would worship, but it was also a place where a lot of business and commerce would take place. And remember, at that time, people had a lot of interest in poetry. So they used to have a lot of poetry competitions, you can say. So people all across Arabia, they would come to Makkah. So when the Prophet ﷺ did da'wah openly, what happened? The message, it went outside of Makkah, all over Arabia. And as it reached the various tribes and their chiefs, those chiefs, what did they do? They asked the leaders of Makkah. they asked the leaders, the chiefs of the tribes of Quraysh and the other eminent tribes in Makkah, asking them, what do you think about this man? What do you think about this revelation that he is presenting before us? What is your opinion? Just like today, whenever there's something important, whenever there's some major event, what do people do? They ask the experts. They have a panel of them sitting and they ask them, what is your opinion? What do you think? What do you suggest? So similarly, the Hujjaj, the people who would come visit Makkah for pilgrimage, for Umrah, for various reasons, the chiefs, they would ask the leaders of Makkah, what do you say about this issue, about this man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Now, in response, the mushrikeen of Makkah, especially the leaders amongst them, they would say, it's nothing new, it's just asatirul awwaleen, just stories. Forget about it, don't give any importance to it. Now just imagine, somebody tells you about something that is relevant to your life, something that is about your hereafter, what's going to happen after you die, and you ask someone about it, and they say, just stories. Now when they say it's just stories, what happens? Automatically, that message that has reached you, it has been belittled. Isn't it? Just imagine if you find out about some major news, some major event that happened, and somebody tells you it's just a story, just something made up, something that the news has made up. Isn't it going to be belittled automatically? It's going to be belittled. Nobody's going to give any importance to it. In fact, people are going to have a good laugh at it. Isn't it so? We thought it was so serious, but look at it, it's only stories. Stories that have been invented by the people of the past. So by saying such remarks, by giving such comments, they would not only belittle the Qur'an, but they would also mock at the Qur'an and at the Prophet ﷺ. And they wouldn't just say that it's asatirul awwaleen, they would also say that it is shi'r. This is poetry. Or it is sihr, it is magic, it is kahana, it is soothsaying. They would say many, many things. It is said that at the time of Hajj, the leaders of Makkah, what they did was that they sent various people on the outskirts of Makkah, so that as the Hujjaj, as the caravans, they would be coming into Makkah, they would tell them, they would warn them from before, that look, there is a man in Makkah, he is claiming to be a prophet of Allah, but remember, he is only saying asatirul awwaleen. All that he's saying is falsehood. And we learn about so many companions who had come to Makkah, hearing about such news, plugging their ears, so that they were not able to hear anything even that this magician was saying. However, we learn that people who use their sense, who use their mind, they know that they should also look at the other side of the story. And when they heard what the Prophet ﷺ had to say, they believed. So the mushrikeen, they tried their best to stop people from coming even near the Prophet ﷺ. We learn in Surah Al-Furqan, ayah number 5, they would say, وَقَالُوا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ اِكْتَتَبَهَا. And they say, it is only tales of the ancients, which he has written down. Just imagine, he was supposed to be an ummi, and they say he has written down. فَهِيَ تُمْلَى عَلَيْهِ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. And they are dictated to him morning and evening, and in the afternoon. So every morning and afternoon, somebody comes and dictates these stories to him. It is these Roman and Persian slaves. They come and tell him about these stories, and then he shows that it is some kind of revelation. So by this plot, by this scheming, what were the mushrikeen of Makkah doing? They were diverting people, they were stopping people from Islam. They were stopping them from coming near the Prophet ﷺ even. So as a result, they were misguiding many people. Now when they're misguiding so many people are averted from their religion because of them. What happens? When a person is averted from the deen because of us, because of our behavior, because of our negative commentary, our negative speech, then what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيَحْمِلُوا أَوْزَارَهُمْ كَامِلَةً يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. That they may bear their own burdens in full on the day of resurrection. وَمِنْ أَوْزَارِ الَّذِينَ يُضِلُّونَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. And some of the burdens of those whom they misguide without knowledge. أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَزِرُونَ. Unquestionably, evil it is what they bear. لِيَحْمِلُوا. Lam over here is of consequence. Remember there's different types of lam? Sometimes it gives a meaning of reason, illah. Other times lam is of aqibah, consequence. And you should now become familiar with these words. One lam is of illah. Illah is what? Reason. And another is of aqibah. What does aqibah mean? End result, consequence. So لِيَحْمِلُوا, so that they may carry. Meaning in the consequence of their matter, in the consequence of these activities they were engaged in, telling people the Qur'an is asatirul awwaleen, as a result, what are they doing? They will carry awzarahum, their own burdens. Awzar is a plural of wizr. Their own burdens. Which burdens? The burden of the sins that they themselves have committed. The burden of their dalal, their misguidance, their sins. And they will carry all of these burdens, how? Kamilatan, completely. Kamila from kaf mim lam, completely. Meaning, nothing of their sins will be reduced. Nothing of their sins will be removed. They will have to carry their burdens fully, completely. Whereas on the other hand, we see that if a believer has committed some mistakes, some sins, then with Allah's mercy, some burden will be reduced for him. Some burden will be lightened for him. But this person, لِيَحْمِلُوا أَوْزَارَهُمْ كَامِلَةً يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. So first of all, they'll be carrying their own burdens, the burden of the sins that they themselves have committed, their being on dalal. But they will also carry something else. What will they carry? وَمِن, and from, أَوْزَارِ الَّذِينَ, the burdens of those people who يُضِلُّونَهُمْ, they misguide them, بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ, without knowledge. They had misguided people without any knowledge. They misguided people how? Without any knowledge, meaning without any evidence. And when people followed them and the sins that they committed, those sins, the people will themselves carry, but they will also be carried by who? By those who misguided them. So what does it show to us? That on the day of judgment, a person will carry the burden of sin that he himself has committed, and at the same time, he will also carry the burden of sin of who? Those people whom he led astray. Those people whom he misguided. And if you notice over here, it has been said, وَمِنْ أَوْزَارِ الَّذِينَ. Not all of their burdens, but some of. What does this show? That the people whom they led astray, it wasn't that they committed only one type of sin. They committed many, many types of sins. And of their sins is what? What they did in following their leaders. So their leaders will carry the burden of who? That sin in which they had led them astray. وَمِنْ أَوْزَارِ الَّذِينَ يُضِلُّونَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Allah says, أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَزِرُونَ. Evil is what they carry. So we see that the people of Makkah, they rejected the truth themselves. And at the same time, they also encouraged others to reject it. They were on dalal, and they also did idlal. They were on misguidance, and they also led others astray. This is the reason why they will carry double burden on the Day of Judgment. And in this is a very important lesson for us. First of all, we learn from this that on the Day of Judgment, each and every person will carry the burden of their own sins. أَوْزَارَهُمْ, their own sins. Nobody's going to come and say, let me carry some of the burden that you have on your back. Let me share some of your burden. In this dunya, what happens? If you're carrying a lot of weight, if somebody sees you, sometimes even strangers, if they see you, they will come and help you. Isn't it? Sometimes you have a lot of stuff in your hands, and perhaps your neighbor whom you hardly ever speak to, if they see, it's possible that they will come and help you. However, on the Day of Judgment, a person will carry the burden of his sins alone. No one is going to come and offer any help. Now it's up to a person. How much burden does he want to carry on that day? How much can he afford to carry? It's up to a person. You have the choice. If you think you can carry a lot, go ahead, do whatever you want. If you think you cannot carry, then do not do anything that will make you carry a lot of burden on that day. Just imagine if you're traveling somewhere and you have a lot of hand luggage. Just imagine. Sometimes it happens that you're traveling in a group and you end up carrying a lot of stuff in your hands. So imagine you have a handbag and then you have a trolley and then perhaps you have a car seat and maybe you have a stroller. How difficult it is to carry all that stuff yourself. It's impossible. It's extremely difficult. So this is a great warning for us. That whatever sins we are committing today, tomorrow we'll have to bear their burden. Tomorrow we'll have to carry them. And this is real. This is not imaginary. This is real. We learn in the Quran, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No bearer of burdens will bear the burden of another. Similarly in Surah An-Nahl, ayah 164, we learn, وَلَا تَكْسِبُ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ إِلَّا عَلَيْهَا. And every soul earns not except against itself. Meaning everything that a person is acquiring, he himself will carry it. Secondly, another very important lesson that we learn from this ayah is that if a person misleads others, if a person is a means of stopping people from the way of Allah, then he will also carry their burden on the Day of Judgment. If a person does something wrong because you taught them, if a child says a bad word because you taught them, if a child begins to lie because you lied to them, if somebody does not do something that is a part of deen because you said it's not that important, you belittled it. If somebody asks you about the Quran and you say, it's no big deal, they don't really have to study it every day. It's very tough anyway. It's very difficult. If somebody asks a person, so how is the course? Do you think it's good to enroll in it? Do you think it's beneficial? And a person says, no. Don't do that. Your life will become very difficult. Just study once in a while whenever you want to. It's not mandatory anyway. So if a person is a means of stopping people from the deen, from the Quran, if a person teaches people what is wrong and they do it, then he will also carry their burden on the Day of Judgment. From the hadith we learn that whoever invites people to guidance, any person who invites people to guidance, to something that is good, then he will receive a reward like that of those who follow him. And what is this? Sadaqah jariyah. That you teach someone something good, and they continue. Even when you've died, then what's going to happen? You're going to continue to get the hasanat. He will have a reward like that of those who follow him, without diminishing their reward in the least. And whoever invites people to misguidance, any person who invites people to something that is wrong, then he will bear a burden of sin like that of those who follow him, without diminishing their burden in the least. So here we need to check ourselves. That what are we promoting? What are we calling people to? Like we see over here that the mushrikeen, yes, they would say asatirul awwaleen. Today perhaps we don't say anything like that. We tell people, come and study. Come and learn the Quran. Come and listen to the Quran. But sometimes our behavior, our rudeness, our disorganization, our not following the rules, what happens? It turns people away from their religion. When they come and they see, everything is so disorganized over here. People don't even sit in classrooms. They hang out in the cafeteria. Then isn't that a way of turning people away? What are they going to think? There's no discipline. What are they going to say? That there are rules written everywhere, but people don't follow them. Or sometimes our behavior, that people come in, we don't welcome them. People come into the class, we don't make room for them. So sometimes our behavior can easily turn people off, and we should be very careful. And you see, there's also another reason as to why people get offended so quickly when it comes to the religion. When anyone comes to do something for the deen, they think they're doing a favor. Isn't it? Many people think like this, that when they come to study the deen, when they come to the masjid, when they come to an institute, it is as though they are doing a favor. Which is why they want that they should be respected, and they should be honored, and they should be listened to, they should be accommodated, every wish of theirs should be granted. This is the psychology of people. And when every wish of theirs is not granted, they get offended very quickly. So this is how people are at the beginning. That they think as though they're doing a favor. But the reality is that when people come, we should welcome them in. Accept it. Okay, fine. They want to be respected. Go ahead. Welcome them in. And later on, they will come to learn. They will find out themselves. And they will know what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. But at the beginning, we have to be extremely welcoming. Remember we learned earlier that وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Bring them closer. Be gentle towards them. Be kind towards them. Because at the beginning, everyone wants that comfort. Everyone wants that sense of, being welcomed in. And if we don't offer that, then people will be turned away from their religion. And if they're turned away, then it's our fault as well. So we should be extremely careful in our speech, in our behavior, in our style of walking, in our following the rules, that nobody at all gets upset because of us. We should not be a means of turning people away from their religion.